We've only just begun.
You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation, as brought to you by the Foundational Friday. Our core aim is to present and experience an opportunity for your soul to reascend to its place of origin by cultivating a healthier spiritual awareness and emotional maturity. This show serves as a free offering to the greater community and an addendum requirement for all ANU spiritual training students. For all those listening, if you'd like to move closer to the calculations and fundamental understandings of the ANU order, be sure to pick up the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. If you desire a spiritual reading to help you map your current spiritual position in the face of your world and learn the greatest pathways for your fortune in this season, you can go to the saduluhouse.com. That is SADULUHOUSE.com. You can also go to orishareligion.com to find out how you can become a student and member of the new spiritual order. That's ORISHARELIGION.com. Let us begin.
Greetings, Yuya, Assaan-ANU here, conductor of the Foundational Friday Experience on Enlightenment and Transformation, Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order, and head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center, bringing you yet again another episode where we will be outlining, uncovering, decoding, and maybe even introducing for the first time to some an archetype, and a cosmic archetype by the name of Lakshmi. Okay. So as always on the last, well, not as always, but as of late on the last Friday of the month, we cover an archetype. So we've been pretty consistent with that, and we're going to remain consistent with this format. I like how this feels, being able to bring some archetype information at the end of the month, but also giving some how-tos at the beginning of the month. So really trying to design a well-rounded experience for you listeners. So you're not just collecting information about a bunch of quote-unquote gods or even esoteric and metaphysic information that just makes you a little bit more aware and maybe increases your circumference of knowledge, but actually providing a more full experience where you have things that you can apply, things that you can know, and new energies and principles that govern the universe that you can acquaint yourself with. So that way you can create that circumference of not just knowledge in your home and in your life, but a full circumference of spiritual control of your spiritual and soul's ecosystem. And that's really what we have to design. This is what this is about. Aligning yourself not only with your soul's mission, but creating a soul ecosystem that is healthy and nutritious for your soul to thrive in, and learning how to spot and remove the weeds and the tares and the acidic soil that would tear down and break down the seeds of information that are being planted in the womb of your mind. So that is why we strive to make sure that the shows are balanced in terms of their presentation, that you're getting everything that we can possibly give in the short time that I'm able to present each Friday. And of course, with our complement show of ANU Asafo. And as promised, there will be more shows coming forth. I've spoken about it for a while. We're in the process now, just working out some of the details on that. But I'm pretty excited about that, actually, because one of my desires at some point is to have a more consistent presentation of our new shows on air, quality shows, though, not just to be present, but really things that cover different areas that we all have to kind of look at and that we all deal with, so that we're kind of a full featured one-stop shop in a sense, so I'm really excited about bringing more information. I did a show recently with a Ebony Empress, blogtalk.com/Ebony Empress. And it was a show on dysfunctional family, because as many of you know, and many of you have picked up my book, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, you know that relationships and couples counseling is something that I also do. And it's just as important and dear as the spiritual work. They're actually really one and the same. It's just the language that I use is different depending on who and what I'm speaking to and for. And that show got a pretty good response, once people were able to get a copy of it and listen to it. If you go to the ANU Nation website on YouTube, youtube.com/ANU Nation, you'll see a copy of the show up there, so you can listen to it. It's a more clear copy than what was delivered to us from Blog Talk, so you can actually hear it much better. And I guess the good thing about listening on YouTube is that YouTube is on every phone, so you can listen to it from your phone as well, most phones. But a lot of people really appreciated the different kind of information that I brought on that show. And when I mean different is because most are used to me speaking about spiritual matters, so they were appreciative to hear me speak about something different, other than Orisha and metaphysics and occultism, in the unseen world, but to go and tap into other areas. And soon we will be doing that more. Education is another thing that's very dear to me, that I actually do lectures on, and I workshops and, curriculum development as well as professional development. It's something that's always been very, very dear to me, and another one of my purposes on this planet. So at some point we'll also be covering that as well. So, be on the lookout for those. For those of you who were able to make the Nicholas Bookstore event with us, I want to thank everyone for coming out. We had a beautiful time. Definitely a lot of people expressed they were just really overjoyed and really appreciative of the information that was brought forth, and again, varied information. It was different than what I usually present on air or in the classes. And we'll be doing a whole self-actualization tour for all those interested. If you're interested in having us come to your location where you're at, in your city, your town, anywhere, doesn't matter, just send a email to questions@anunation.org, questions@anunation.org, and we'll see if possible if we can set that up for you. But so just be on the lookout for us coming to a city near you soon. But for those who attended, they really, really got a lot out of it. So that was awesome, just to see everyone kind of like light up, and get the information that they need. And one of the charges that I put on everyone at the end of the workshop was apply. That's very important to me. I speak about that a lot, but, sometimes I have to remind folk that this is not just for you to hold in your back pocket, but this information is for you to apply it, to improve your life and to improve the life of those who are close to you, who desire to be improved, not just those who are near you. Okay. Your mission is not to save everyone. Your mission is to save yourself. And in doing that, when you draw yourself up, it's just like when you pull something out of the water, there's a pull, there's a gravitational pull that happens within the water. Just like when something sinks in the water, if you're near a boat, sometimes we see that on movies and it's really phony, but you have like these big boats sink and then people would just jump off at the last minute and swim away. But there's such a strong gravitational pull, vortex that's created when that boat is going down that you wouldn't be able to fight against that. You're going down with it. Well, the same thing happens when we're raising up. When we're raising up, those who are in close proximity are coming up with us. So that is mission number one, and it's not mission impossible, but it certainly is mission number one. So I want to thank everyone who, took time out of your day to make it to Nicholas Bookstore. And, the folks over there at Nicholas asked if we could do something again. They also really enjoyed the workshop as well, and we're really happy with how it went down. So, we'll probably be back there at some point in the future, so gear up for those. If you missed it this time, make sure you make it next time. But we'll be, moving around again. So Nicholas was cool. Nicholas was great. And be on the lookout for a DVD too. We're putting out a downloadable movie as well as a DVD on some of the highlights and poignant points of the actual lecture tour. So you'll be able to actually, get the best of it, the best points and the best statements that are coming forth on this particular tour. All right. So again, we're dealing with the energy of the archetype of Lakshmi in this episode. And one of the things that I want to stress that so people really understand where I'm coming from, when we're dealing with these different cultures, it's very difficult to go anywhere in the world and not find some semblance of Kemetic structure. Okay. And for those who don't know, but if you've been listening to the show, you should know by now, by Kemetic, we mean Egyptian or Egyptos, the Greek word. But Kemet or Timeri, which is really the original name of that Nile Valley civilization. Okay. Timeri, Kemet, Egypt. It's very difficult to go anywhere in the world and not again find remnants or influence, usually very strong influence of Kemetic structure. One of the first things, of course, even as, children, we recognize when we're dealing with Egypt is pyramids, right? And all over the world, you see models of pyramids, whether it be in South America, here in North America along the Mississippi River, or in Asia, they're all over the place. The pyramids are all over the place. So that's one mark that we often know that the influence has been there, even in terms of the teachings, the headdresses. When you even look at North America and you look at the First Nation people, you'll find that their headdresses, the feathers in their headdresses, when they were first asked what the feathers mean, they said it was homage to their teachers who came from the East. So we're dealing here with the feather of Ma'at, which one is to weigh their soul against, or their heart against, at the judgment day with Anpu or Anubis, Lord of the underworld. So you find that Kemetic influence all over, and the Indus Kush Valley is no different, or India, as many people know it to be as. India is no different. That same Kemetic and Africoid influences are there, and there's been a lot of debate about that. I don't really know why, because you could just look at the people and clearly see that there is African influence, African genetics, and African culture that's very much present, even down to the caste system issues that have been dealt with and have been suffered at the hands of outsiders, by Africans worldwide. It's in many reports, it began in India, that caste system. Okay, but it's really important to understand though that when we're dealing with Indian culture, or Indus or Kushite culture, which is really what we're talking about here, Kush. When we're dealing with Kushite culture, we're dealing with African culture. But even if it wasn't, even if we couldn't trace it and identify it to Africa, it doesn't mean that it's not something that we should study. This particular show is not about African culture. Okay. It's not about African theology. It's not about African knowledge and wisdom and understanding. It's about indigenous knowledge and wisdom and understanding. One of the biggest tricks that was played on those who are melanin dominant was the trick where you were localized to one continent, or we were localized to one continent. And I say you, not to exclude myself from those who are melanin dominant, but because I just don't identify with that idea at all. So, we pump our fists and we're so proud of Mama Africa, Mama Africa, Mama Africa. But, we have to understand that Africa is a concept. And because Africa is a concept, Africa can be created wherever we put our feet down. That's where we can create Africa. Certainly, I advise all to visit the continent. If you choose to live there, so be it. But certainly visit, but Africa is where you put your feet down. That's Africa. Okay. So you have to create that environment no matter where you are at. Even if you just, you have a eighth of an acre of land, you living in a parking spot. It doesn't matter. That parking spot should feel and be Africa where you are. If that is something that conceptually you connect to, as being the center of the planet, center of the universe, center of the world, as we know it, the world as we know it, so, you should not localize yourself. I would advise you not to localize yourself to one continent. Of course, we know, at one point, all of the continents were connected. Some say that at that time, the landmass was called Pangea. Others say that it was called Asia. So we have various theories. In truth, no one knows for sure. Right. But we do know, we can deduce that by looking at a map, or globe, either one. And you could see that the continents are nothing but puzzle pieces that you could see how they once slid into each other. They fit together, So with that thought, and with that understanding, we dive into the Hindi culture just as strong as we should dive into any other culture, because it tells more of the story, and it must have been a really glorious time. I think about that sometimes when the gurus and the shamans of the planet would get together and they would compare notes, and like their notes were identical with just different names. I mean, that must have been the coolest thing. I mean, just as cool as when you would see your cousin over the summer and they'd say, oh, well, where we're from, we call it the bus stop. And then you'd say, well, we call it the electric slide. And your other cousin would say, well, over here, we call it grinders. And you'd be like, well, over here, we call it hoagies. And then the other cousin would say, well, we call it heroes. And the other one says, well, we call them subs. But it's the same thing, you see? And no one had to fight over it. No one pulled out a gun. No one initiated any stratagems of biological warfare. No one got stabbed. No one threw a rock at a tank. Nothing. We just laughed and enjoyed the fact that we were coming to the same revelations and the universe was unfolding itself to us all. But through our cultural influences, we were able to make it our own, as opposed to having to say, well, this is Oshun, and it can only ever be Oshun. Well, why can Oshun not be Lakshmi? Why can Lakshmi not be Aphrodite? Why can Aphrodite not be Medusa? If you really understand it. Why could they not be Pampagira? Why could they not be Ezeli Freda? And the list goes on and on and on. We won't go through the whole list, but, even within Hindi culture, you have different avatars of the same energy. For instance, you have Sita, and Sita was the wife or the consort of Rama. Okay. And Sita is an avatar of Lakshmi. They're all avatars of the same energy. So this is kind of similar to when I speak to you about sometimes how you don't really want to get wrapped up in the archetype. You don't want to spend too much time. I mean, you want to learn them, certainly learn them, get to know them, get to know how to use them. And that's what phase 2 of the spiritual training is about, which is soon coming. Get ready. I'm not going to give you guys a date. I'm going to kind of just spring it on you, hint. But in any event, so what I really teach is, don't get locked up in the archetype, but learn the source root from where that archetype emerges from. Because the archetypes we created, just so you know, we created the Orisha, we created the angels, we created the Lawal, we created the Necharu, we created those entities, all right? But we created them as a conceptual thought form understanding or understanding or outer standing of what that original source emanation was trying to convey to us. So when love came onto the planet, whether it came onto the planet in the form of a 5-toe hen, or whether it just came in and, and it rode on a beam of light, we said, well, we have to have a name for this, because in order to get to know it and to use it, to wield it, we must first name it. So we named it in the best way that we could. You see? So, but that name and that thought form and that concept is not love. It's just maybe at certain cultural times, in certain times in history, it was the highest understanding of that ray, of that source. And as in all things, they must evolve. They must evolve. So you're learning about these ancient archetypes so you will not go back to worshiping these ancient archetypes. This is not why I teach them, so you can find something else to serve. I teach them so you will avoid serving the same energy. And when you go on your path of creation and creating your new Orisha, creating your new Luau, creating your new Nkisi, you'll know there's no reason to invent the wheel again. It's already been invented. And that same source energy, it wants us to evolve our understanding of it. Coincidentally, when we're dealing with source energy, the term itself is related to the archetype Oshun, the source. Okay? So, it's very important in that regards, to understand that when we're studying these different cultures around the world, and you hear me bringing up these different, what some would call them to be gods, Thor and Zeus and Odin, I'm not doing that to get you to worship any of these energies at all. I'm doing that so you will have a starting point. Just like when you were told what your zodiac is, what your astrological sign is, you were told your astrological sign so that you would have a starting point, not so that you would live the rest of your life as that astrological sign. Okay. So the same thing when you're told, hey, you came into the energy and Azaka, it's the energy that you came in with, or Zarabanda is the energy that you came in with, or, Oko is your energy. It's not that you can spend the rest of your life worshiping Oko. That is not the point. You were told those things so that you will know, okay, this is my starting point. This is where I spring from. And these are the tools that were given to me so that I can spring forth and get closer to the source, because that is my goal. That is my aim, to return to the source, Okay. Just like, what does Oshun do? What does the sweet waters do? They are always moving to return back to their source and to be absorbed within it. All right. So I'm going to get into the energy of Lakshmi and break that down. I just needed to give you that little precursor, and we're going to get into it right after this. I'll be right back.
For all those in the Rhode Island area, please check out our Chief Jegna, Yuya Assaan-ANU, at Positive New Beginnings on Saturday, February 8th from 2 to 4 p.m., where he will be hosting a workshop on self-actualization with the cosmic forces of West Africa. In this workshop, you will learn how to self-actualize through the universal energies that govern the laws and character of the cosmos. This workshop is a continuation of the Unleashing of Cosmic Forces of West Africa series that is currently being enjoyed by thousands of listeners on Chief Yuya's popular blog talk radio show, Enlightenment and Transformation. At this workshop, 15-minute readings will be offered for $20, as well as the Phase 1 spiritual training class will be offered at 50% off for the workshop Self-Actualization with the Cosmic Forces of West Africa. The workshop is Saturday, February 8th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Positive New Beginnings, which is located at 877 Broadway, East Providence, Rhode Island. The cost of this event is $13 at the door. However, as a special discount for those who RSVP on meetup.com and pay in advance, your entrance fee will only be $10. The meetup site is www.meetup.com/African-spirit-workers. Be prepared to change your life through aligning your spiritual faculties with their corresponding cosmic archetypes. Meet Chief Jegna H. Yuya Assaan-ANU at Positive New Beginnings on Saturday, February 8th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, located at 877 Broadway, East Providence, Rhode Island, for the workshop Self-Actualization with the Cosmic Forces of West Africa.
All right, we're back again from the break. And of course, we are covering the energy of Lakshmi, who many, of course, call a goddess. And if you want to call Lakshmi a goddess, you're okay to do that, if that's what you want to do. If you want to call Lakshmi an archetype, that's cool too. If you want to just call Lakshmi a celestial body, whatever floats your boat. Okay? Literally, whatever floats your boat, whatever keeps you floating on the current, right? So, let's get into, because I always break down the names. I'm a names person. So the word Lakshmi, oftentimes spelled L-A-K-S-M-E. So if you're ever reading anything and you see that L-A-K-S-M-E, that's Lakshmi. But typically you'll see it spelled L-A-K-S-H-M-I. Lakshmi, okay? And Lakshmi is a Sanskrit word, or the Sanskrit brings us back to Laksha. And Laksha means 100,000, right? So this is important when we start to understand the symbolism. And what I'm really going to do with this segment, I'm going to teach you the symbolism of Lakshmi, because it's like once you learn the language, I tell you all the time how important symbols are. But once you learn the symbols and the language, it will be very easy for you next time you are in an Ethiopian restaurant, which is all full of Kush, artifact, or you're in an Indian restaurant. You can actually look at the images that are on the walls or the little statues or the shrines that they set up, because they always have a shrine set up. And you can start to kind of decode what that image represents, or what it could represent for you, which is more important than anything. The symbolism, again, is extremely important when you're getting into occultism and you're getting into just understandings of spirituality, because symbolism is the main tool that's used to suppress the masses, because it's so powerful. Like they say, a picture says 1,000 words or 100 words, 1,000,000 words, whichever one it is, I don't know. But either a picture says a lot of words. That says a lot more than you just knowing the name or the word Lakshmi. But Lakshmi itself, the name Lakshmi means aim, or it means goal. Okay, so it represents the things that we consider to be our goal, or the things that we consider to be our aim. Very interesting, right? Because when we know Oshun and Lakshmi, their avatars are the same energy, right? Just two different avatars, so they're not the same. Oshun is not Lakshmi, Lakshmi is not Oshun, but they have the same parent. Okay, and that parent is congregation. Again, they're representing the congregative forces of the universe, right? But interesting enough, the names are very similar. When you're dealing with Oshun, you're dealing with that flow to source. When you're dealing with Lakshmi, you're dealing with the concept of aim or goal. Okay, and the goal is to go back to the source. So again, like I said, and the tradition, a lot of times you speak to guru, if you ever have an opportunity to, which of course is an honor, to ever speak to a real guru, all right, a real one. They'll tell you that Lakshmi means the final goal. So it's more than just the goal. That's like literal, but it actually means the final goal. Well, what have I been talking about for the past couple of years here. The final goal is not to discover or create or manifest heaven on earth. The final goal is to go back home. The final goal is home, or what some might even call Uranus, right? Or Uranus, or Anu, right? And beyond. Let's go make some new worlds. But what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to break down the symbolism of Lakshmi. You know what her name means. Her name means the goal. And if you just were to look her up, the basic information, they'll always tell you pretty much the same thing. Lakshmi represents prosperity. She represents fortune. She represents love. She represents wealth, beauty, and abundance. It's kind of similar to the basic stuff that they tell you about Oshun. And that's cool. It gives you a good starting point. The only challenge with that is that when you stick with those surface level definitions, it just really simplifies things to the point where it's like, well, most archetypes represent that. So it's like, why do I need to learn this other one? So you kind of always want to dig beneath the surface. And sometimes it's good, again, that the general representation or the general definition is so surface level, because that's one of the things that allowed a lot of these images to have been maintained for so many years, to survive, because the deeper secrets were not revealed to the general population, right? It's just like if you're not Asian and you go to any Asian store to pick out some jewelry, if it's like they have little trinkets there, anything you ask them, hey, well, what does this mean? What is it? It means good luck. It means good luck. You'd be like, wait, hold on. But you said the last thing meant good luck. That means good luck too. Everything means good luck. So, it's very similar if if you're not African or continental African, and you go to an African store and you start picking up masks and you start picking up statues and you say, well, hey, what does this one mean? What does that mean? Everything means to have a happy life, to have a happy life. This one is nice. Yeah. Nice. Have a happy life. And you're like, wait a minute. This means to have a happy life. I mean, it's come on. It's a statue of another guy strangling another guy with sheep innards. That means to have a happy life. That's what that means. So a lot of times that surface level representation or projection of the deeper concepts, and sometimes even the people presenting them don't know what these things mean. They don't really know. They just pick them up and they know that people like to buy them. But that's what allows some of this culture to survive, and some of this deeper level information to survive. So, there is a purpose in all things. There's a purpose in all things. But when we're dealing with Lakshmi, or as some like to call her, the quote unquote goddess of wealth, one of the things that you'll first notice, and I hope, I would advise you all right now as you're listening to this show, if possible. I know some of you may be listening from work and things like that, but if you can place an image of Lakshmi in front of you, and just go to the internet for that. You don't have to, get too deep with it. But if you can get an image of Lakshmi in front of you, it may help you, as we're going. Even if you go back to the archives, I would say go back and, get yourself a nice image of Lakshmi to put in front of you that you can look at while we're going over her energy. But one of the things that you'll see, a couple things very common in images of Lakshmi, you see that she always has a pink or red sari on, or dress. She's always wearing that pink or red dress. You'll also find that there's always some representation of elephants, usually like white or gray elephants, the lighter colored ones. And some will have 4 elephants, and then others will only have 1. Okay, but you'll always see the elephant nearby in the images of Lakshmi, and you will also see lotus petals. Lotus is that's a very key element. A very key element when we are looking at images of Lakshmi. But you'll see those lotus petals, and you'll usually see an owl as well. And typically, you'll see her in some kind of body of water. Again, being a water archetype, it was said that Lakshmi actually came from the ocean, and she churned. She brought forth by churning in the ocean, and she was churning on a lotus flower and churned out. But we'll break down what that actually means, the symbolism of it all, because that's the most important thing. But Lakshmi, I said again, being a goddess of wealth or love, and she has different archetypes. You have to understand her relationship to Vishnu. Now, in Hindi culture or Hindi mythology, Vishnu is like the head deity. Okay, the head deity is Vishnu, and Vishnu has various avatars. Some time ago, I don't know how long ago, must have been about a year or two ago. If you go back in the archives, you'll find it. But I did a show on Krishna, okay, and I broke down that Krishna information, and I think I related it to a hurricane that we were having at the time, which was part of a celebration of Krishna. But Krishna is actually an avatar of Vishnu. Okay, so again, we're dealing with that idea of the source. We were talking about that earlier, and how the source represents itself or presents itself at different times as different avatars in different seasons. Well, Vishnu has several avatars. Okay, and one of those avatars is Krishna, and another one of those avatars is Rama, who I spoke about earlier. Now, Rama's wife or Rama's consort was Sita. All right. Rama's consort was Sita, Sita. Very interesting stories with Rama and Sita. And then you also had Radha. Radha was one of Krishna's lovers, but Krishna actually had like a lot of lovers. So Krishna was like all over the place, and everyone loved him, and he had a lot of lovers from a very young age. And for those of you who may not be familiar, a lot of times when you, again, go into the Indian restaurant, or you see different elements of Hindi culture, you'll see this little blue boy. Because they usually show him as, either a little boy or as a teenager. And that image, that's actually Krishna, okay, who's a form of the Christ. Okay, Krishna is a redeemer. He's a form of the Christ. But again, that is an avatar from Vishnu. There was I think a song that I had showed you guys last time, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare is one of the forms of Vishnu. Okay, so that's actually an invocation. Okay, and even though Vishnu is described as having a color of blue, a divine blue color. Again, you always have to understand that when you're dealing with that color of blue or of green, what that really is melanated beings. If you can find some of the older pictures of Vishnu, which I actually do own, he's actually jet black. Okay, so the blue came a little bit later, and the features were much different. Okay, the features were much more Africoid. All right, and they were later changed into the more softer and narrow features of a lot of the Hindu or Hindi deities that we see today, and his color was changed. Okay, but again, this is not really a show about Krishna. We did the Krishna show, so I definitely advise you all to go back and check that out. But I really just wanted to tap on this concept of Vishnu and the importance of Lakshmi's relationship to Vishnu. Okay, Lakshmi is considered to be the source of power for Vishnu, the source of power for the Almighty. Okay, very important. As I tell a lot of people, a little secret, it's not really a secret, I guess, because I'm saying it, to all the listeners. But when you're setting up a Shango, and again, Shango would be similar to Krishna, again, that redeemer, right? Who's also a form of the Christ. If you're setting up a Shango, just for those of you who may have a space for Shango in your home, which is awesome, it's cool, do that. Always have an Oya. Shango has no power without Oya. It's very important. It's a Awos. I don't want to say secret, but it's an Awos knowing. Okay, you cannot set up a Shango without an Oya, and you'll see it all the time. You see people will have their shrine set up like that, and Shango will be sitting there looking pretty with the O'Sheas and the leopard skin, and they have everything they're supposed to have in the red and white. And then you look around, you don't see a Oya. You're looking at an empty shrine. Okay, Shango's power comes from Oya. All right. So Vishnu, the source of his strength is Lakshmi. Okay. But she's also the source of strength for a lot of other entities. So again, that water entity of Lakshmi or Oshun, relating it again back to our Yoruban, is a source of strength. So let's get back to the symbols, because symbols are important. I want to actually tap into the lotus first. And the reason why I'm going to tap into the lotus, because you'll see that image of a lotus all over the place. You know, like any archetype you look up, at some point you're going to see a lotus. Okay, that's kind of like a staple, you know, of the different representations of the archetypes. Now, just physically, because remember, spirits work in symbol. Everything is symbol. So when you're trying to figure out, well, why should I use a lotus for this ritual? Why should I use that? The first thing that you want to do is you want to learn its physical properties. Its physical properties give evidence and give away the clue and the secret of its spiritual properties. Okay, always remember that. That's for any herb, anything that's prescribed to you, or if you're reading an Odu and it's like, okay, use this type of flower, use this type of bark, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You want to look at the physical. Even I always tell you, learn things from the inside to the outside, but it may be a little difficult for you if you don't first have that level of relationship or that level of ashe, where you can just talk to the flower and it will tell you. But that will come. Don't worry. In time, you will have that. Okay. But in the meantime, what you do is start with its physical properties. And when you look up its physical properties, then it will give, again, rhyme and reason as to why it has the spiritual disposition that it has. Okay. So when we're dealing with the lotus, what's very important to know about the lotus is that the lotus actually grows in mud. Okay. Even though we always see lotus petals and lotus flowers on the surface of the water, they bloom and sprout and lie on the surface of the water, but they're actually rooted deep in the mud. They're not just like on the surface of the mud. They go down deep. They have extremely deep roots. So they go straight from the top of the water's surface all the way down, as far down as they have to go, into the mud of the ocean bottom. Okay, lotuses are a very, very deep flower. Okay, that's why, again, you'll see that flower represented through a lot of different, symbolism when it comes to not just Hindi culture, but even Ethiopian culture. You'll see things about the lotus. Okay, but I want you to understand that what that also represents is, obviously we're going down into the mud with the roots, right? So then you would think that the lotus would then sprout on the bottom where the mud is, but no, the lotus goes beyond the earth. The lotus goes beyond the earth. It goes beyond the element of water, and it goes into the air. So that represents the Akashic properties of the lotus. The lotus transcends the environment that it was born out of. Okay, it's almost like, imagine if you, to make it simpler, if you were born of your mother, you came out of your mother's womb, your feet touched the or let's say, here's a better way, the umbilical cord was never cut. For some of you, that's actually true. But so the umbilical cord was never cut, but you soared up to the clouds, and that's where you made your home. You went onto a cloud and made that your bed. But meanwhile, your mother, who's still on Earth, still has this umbilical cord that's going from the planet's surface, or what we call Aye, the Earth's crust, and it's going up into Orun, okay, which is the skies, or which is the heavens. That is the property of the lotus. Okay, it roots in this world that we are on, and then say trapped on, but that we reside on, but it actually manifests itself. It unfolds itself in the heavens. It unfolds itself in the heavens. It's very important for you to understand that concept of unfolding. Okay, when you're looking at the science of the lotus. So most of the time with Lakshmi, you'll see that she'll be like standing on a lotus, or floating on a lotus. on the top of the water, which represents her transcendental nature. Okay, so when you see her on top of the water, it represents her transcendental nature. She always has 4 arms, as many of the other deities have, the 4 arms. And what you'll find is that in each one of her hands is pretty much doing something different. She'll have 2 arms like pointed up that look like they're coming behind her. And then she'll have 2 arms that are not necessarily pointed, but they're kind of lower. They're just a little lower on her body. So she has those 4 arms. Okay. And each arm has a different representation, or each hand. One represents Dharma. And just so you know, I know many of you are probably familiar with the term karma. Okay. But there's another term in the culture by the name of Dharma. Now, Dharma would align itself closer to like what we would call Ori, but not just Ori. There's a certain aspect of Ori that in particular deals with your destiny. And that aspect we would usually call Ori Apere. Ori Apere. All right. And that deals with what you came here to do. And there's different forms of Ori Apere. It's not just, like this, they come in different categories. One being sometimes a person never really releases themselves from Orun, and they only come to or heaven, and they only come to the planet to observe life. They don't really come to necessarily participate. They just come to view. Okay, that is one aspect of Ori. That's a form of Ori that's usually read when we do the Assaan-ANU, which is the reading, that we'll do for a child, moments or days after they come onto the planet. And we do that particular reading, and it lets us know, not only the child's destiny, but what form of destiny did this child come here with. Okay. But then you have different forms. You have children who came to serve. You have children who came to do unconditional service for others. And they all have different terms to them. But there's always an acknowledgement, of course, that, again, there's a higher self, or what we call the Ori Ipori. Okay. So that lotus flower represents that knowing. It represents that understanding of that Ori Ipori. So it's very, very important. But not just that, the lotus flower is one that represents unfolding. Okay, your lotus flower represents the unfolding of your path, the unfolding of your destiny. Okay, that is the science behind the lotus flower. The lotus flower also represents the womb. Okay, so it's that there's a good book that an elder wrote, The Jewel and the Lotus. You get a moment to pick that up. It's got some really good information in it on Tantra, and that whole science. And that's a book that I greatly enjoyed reading. So, but it again, that understanding of the lotus. And again, she's always standing, or sometimes you'll find her sitting on the lotus. And when she's sitting on the lotus, what that actually means is she's in the world, but she's not affected by it. Okay, so her roots, that's why the root of the lotus is down there in the mud. But Lakshmi is actually sitting on top of the lotus, is saying that I'm observing from my higher self. Yeah, I'm deep down rooted. I'm in the mud, but the world does not own me. Okay, it's like the old Christian songs would say, I'm in the world, but not of it. Or the Bible say, ye are in this world, but not of it. So this world is not necessarily your home, despite the fact that you decided to root here. The fact that you're sitting, or Lakshmi is sitting, because remember, if Lakshmi's sitting, you're sitting. You are Lakshmi. She's an avatar of you as source, but a whole nother conversation. So that sitting position, or what some people will call a full lotus or half lotus, if you've ever heard that term before, what that represents is her detachment from the world. She's just sitting on top of the water, just floating. And just, kind of looking down into the world. All right. And also it's important for you to understand that lotus, or I should say, I'm sorry, Lakshmi represents Shakti energy. Okay. And that's the Shakti energy is that energy in motion, the drive forward, especially when we're dealing with the raising of Kundalini energy. Okay. When we're dealing with the raising of Kundalini energy, that energy or that power is represented by the archetype Shakti, or sometimes you'll also see it represented as Durga. Okay, sometimes you'll see the name Durga Shakti. You'll see them put together, but you have two entities. You have Lakshmi and you have Saraswati, and Lakshmi and Saraswati are both energies or emanations of Durga, Shakti, and even Tridevi. All right, and these particular energies, what they represent is power. Okay, and the movement, the various ways that power moves. So Lakshmi, Oshun, is moving power. Now, how do we know that she represents moving power as well? Because when we look at her clothes, remember I said earlier, she usually either has on that red or pink sari or dress. That red represents activity. Remember, red represents activated Ashe. Okay, so just like going back to Shango, the red and white of Shango, the red represents his active state, his activity, and the white represents his purity or his calm and cooled state. Okay, so Lakshmi, you'll always see that she has on the red with gold trim or gold lining. Gold, of course, represents alchemy. Now, if you read a lot of the books and things, they'll tell you the gold represents wealth and it represents prosperity. Sure, it could represent that, certainly. But on another level, the gold actually represents her ability to alchemicalize items, especially items that would be considered mundane, like the lotus flower that's in her hand, which is rooted down in the mud in a place that's mundane. That's the earth. But it alchemicalizes itself into this beautiful flower petal that exists in the heavens. That's a form of alchemy. Okay, because remember, alchemy is a divine blackness. Where is that flower rooted at? The divine blackness of the mud. And from that divine blackness of the mud births this beautiful archetypes of this beautiful energy. Okay, and you can relate that to other energies, of course, that you see with that lotus flower, which again, like I said, is a key piece. And you'll see in one of her hands, a lot of times you'll see gold coins. But, let me break down the hands for you, because that's important. And she has four hands. Now, those four hands actually represent the four directions. Okay. And so you'll see that with other Hindi archetypes. You'll see a lot of times they have 4 hands, 8 hands. And what these represent is the supremacy or the omnipresence of their power. So Lakshmi, this energy of force or power or moving forward, is everywhere. Okay. And behind her, on her the left, the hand that's on the left, right? That's we would consider like, the one that's a little bit further back and it's kind of up. That would represent Dharma. And again, Dharma is your purpose, that Ori Aperi, or that destiny, or what some people say your job is while you're here on the planet. Karma, we know, represents that cycle of that cause and effect. And then you have Dharma that represents what you're here to do. Any of you are familiar with the miniseries Lost that was on, I think NBC. I don't know. I'm not good with channels, but because I don't watch TV. When I do watch shows, it's on the internet. But I think it was on NBC. But it was a good show for a little while. Then it got weird. But there was a lot of comedic information in that show. There was like a little symbology, the names of people and things like that. But in any event, one of the symbols that you saw, what was it? A central theme in that entire series was Dharma. Dharma, for those who want to look it up, Dharma. Okay, so that's on that left hand. And then on the front on the left hand, you have the gold coins. Okay, that yellow brick road again. Now, again, certainly the gold coins represent wealth, of course, but they also represent the ability for travel. Again, that's why we have the idea of the 4 directions. That currency is ability of travel, but it's also prosperity while on earth. So even though she's saying, I'm in the earth, but I'm not really of the earth, but while I'm here, I'm going to party and bull, so that's what that that represents. And that aspect is called Artha, okay, materialism. right? And then you have on that same, well, no, on the opposite side, you have on that right side, you have another hand which represents desire. That hand is usually empty, okay? And that hand being empty represents the things that she desires, okay? Now, remember in Hindi culture, you have the left side and the right side. The right side represents things that are active, things that are lively, things that are moving. The left side represents death. Now, this is no different from our understanding of Odu. It's the same thing. When you read a leg of Odu, the right side represents masculine energy. The left side represents feminine energy. Whenever you create your Eshus or your Ilegbas, make sure you draw the right side in red, and you want to draw the left side in black. Same deal, okay? So that right side, that activity, gimme, that hand is empty. And again, like I said, that represents the desires of Lakshmi, or desires of those of us who are in the world, you know. And also that money, just so you know, it also represents being financially free. You know, having things, not just money, but also having health, having children, having mates. Okay, that's what that currency also represents, being in the flow of freedom. Because in many senses, you know, money does represent liberty, you know, and on some levels, the freedom to do whatever it is you desire to do. That's why this whole idea of I'm going to study culture, or I'm going to be into my culture, and that means now that I have to be poor, is not really in alignment. That poverty mindset is not really in alignment with our ancient wisdom. This is especially important to understand when we get into understandings of the Ori. Okay, one of the reasons why the head being kept a certain way in Nigerian culture is and was so important is because it was considered to show respect to the head. Okay, so the head was shaved to remove poverty, or it was kept in a certain braided style, or however it was kept, you know. But the head was a critical piece because you were always showing honor to your God self by maintaining the head properly, not letting it be shabby, not letting it be dirty, and so forth and so on. And that was considered to be a sign of poverty if you allowed those things to happen. All right. But I want to get to her left hand, which is the one that's in the back behind her. It's kind of the one that's facing up. In that hand, she has lotus petals that are not actually fully blossomed, and she actually has 100 of them. Okay, she has 100 lotus petals that are not actually blossomed, and they kind of have those white streaks that you'll see in lotus petals, those white lines. Okay, and what that represents, again, is that Shango energy, the ability to go forward, but the ability to also be creative and come backwards. That's that balance, almost like the balance of yin and yang. Okay, that's that balance. And in Hindi culture, you pray for that. You know, it's called sadhana. And I learned that actually years ago, and there's a woman I know who actually owns a tea house in Mount Vernon, New York, called the Sadhana Tea House. You know, anybody's ever in Mount Vernon, go check her out. Her name is Kashali, Mother Kashali. But in any event, that balance, that Shangoic balance, that's what those 100 lotuses represent that are not fully blossomed yet. It's that youth of Shango, not yet Obatala. Okay, again, there's a reason why she's surrounded by all these white elephants, because we're talking about where things go. She's really a very complete representation. You know, one of the other things that we'll find is the owl in the image, and the owl actually represents Tahuti or Orunmila because it represents wisdom. The wisdom, because it has its ability to turn its head almost in a 360, so it sees everything, but also it's a nocturnal animal, so it sees things that lie in the dark that others do not. Okay, that is the representation of the owl. Sometimes the owl can also represent dirty deeds as well, though. So just so you know, it's not all good, because the owl can sometimes represent things that people do in deceit, that people do behind closed doors. So you want to understand, obviously, the animal aspects and the animal representations that are inherent and present with the energy of Lakshmi. And like I said, the owl is nearby, and the owl is usually near where that money is. Okay, those coins that she's spilling them out. She's just dropping them out, which of course also represents her willingness to give. Her willingness to give. Okay, and then you have, like I said, the other right hand, which is empty. Okay, and a lot of times people say that emptiness, represents a few things, because that's a particular pose, that hand straight down like that, and that also represents not only just desire, but it represents the removal of the entity of fear. The removal of the entity of fear, because it's often said that fear, in the Bhagavad Gita, if you ever get a chance to read the Bhagavad Gita, it says that fear is caused by desires that have not manifested. Okay, so when you have unmanifested desires, it creates this realm of fear, and fear is considered to be an asura, and asura in the Hindi culture means demon. Okay, you have the devas are gods, asuras are demons. Okay, and fear is actually an entity. It's not just a feeling, but it's an actual entity that will seek to be in your life, to be with you, to live with you. Okay, so that's one of the things that particular aspect or that pose of Lakshmi represents. And then on that same side, on the right hand, you have that backhand, and that hand actually has lotus flowers that are fully open. Okay, they're fully open, and what that represents, remember I told you earlier that Lakshmi is assimilated with Shakti energy, or that power. Those fully open lotus represents that Kundalini that is completely opened up. Okay, it's completely opened up, and Shakti has come to it, has met Shiva at the top, has come to its full understanding. So it represents that unleashing. You remember I've told you before with Oshun as well, that Oshun protects the head of the ascended Awo. So Lakshmi is no different. When you come to that place of complete evolution and self-awareness, that energy of the Shakti or Lakshmi is there to protect you, and most importantly, to protect you from yourself. Okay, but one of the things that you have at that stage is wisdom, and the reason why we know you have wisdom is because if you look at that lotus flower. So when you guys get your picture, please try to get a clear copy. I actually don't have my Lakshmi picture in front of me. I probably should have did that before I did the show, but I off from memory. But you'll see when you look at these things. Now, in that particular hand, you'll have, you'll see the lotus, but closer to the stem of the lotus, you'll see the color blue. All right. And what the blue represents is the heaviness of wisdom. But remember, as I told you before, whenever you see blue, it's really black. Okay. So that blue represents ether or Akashic. The Akashic element is so when the Kundalini comes to its full raise, what you're dealing here now with is that ether or that Akashic element, which I spoke about in a previous show when I explained that ether is that breath, that only the divine breath that only the gods can breathe. Okay, so that breathing, obviously, is an important element to raising the Kundalini energy and to fully blossoming your lotus petal. But it represents your being able to exist in that realm of the ether, because if only the gods can live there or breathe there, then clearly it's not something that the average person who's underdeveloped or who has not blossomed, it's not someplace that they can be. Okay, it's not someplace that they can be. All right. And you also, like I said, you'll see the four elements. Usually, they either have a water vessel on their head, or they're in water, or they're pouring water. There's always some type of representation of them sharing water, whether it's one element, or if it's one element, four elements. And again, those represent the four directions, but they also represent that Obatilian energy of purity. So what they do is they purify you at each step of your of your growth and development. So if you look and understand each hand of Lakshmi, right? Because we went through the 4 arms. We have Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Mukti. Okay, which is really the Dharma is your purpose, and more so the purity of purpose. Okay, we touched upon this when we dealt with Atlas Shrugged, the purity of purpose, the purity of activity. We dealt with the aspect of Kama, which is your completion or your perfected completion. Mukti is your freedom, your financial freedom, or your freedom from the bondages of things that you are afraid of. Okay. So when we understand those 4 things, the elephants maintain the strength of each one of your stages. Okay. Elephants represent strength. They represent memory. So what that actually means, and understanding that they also represent memory, because remember, your job here, as you're evolving and you're getting deep and you're becoming more self-aware, what you want to make sure you do is that when you transcend to the next lifetime, you want to retain aspects of your consciousness. You don't want to come back again and know nothing. You don't want to do all this for nothing. Okay, just so that you can be deep in this lifetime. That's not what this is about. This is so that you can maintain this level of consciousness in the next realm. So those elephants actually represent that memory, or that ability to maintain and retain not only the growth, because we're not talking about information, but to retain the stages that you've achieved when you've been able to go through those 4 different hands of Lakshmi. And of course, Lakshmi has her own aspects, like, how we have caminos or we have paths, but she also has her own paths and her own aspects as well. But if you just look at those various symbols that I just taught you, and those symbols, you'll find those symbols in a lot of other archetypes, but not necessarily the same combinations. So what you have to understand is that those symbols are actually a formula for everything that Lakshmi represents. So those symbols are a formula for wealth. Those symbols are a formula for transcendental awareness. That's the lotus on the top of the water, right? Those symbols are a formula for the removal of fear. Okay, this is one of the reasons why Lakshmi and Sita, they made it to Krishna. These warrior and Rama, these are all warrior energies, very similar to how Oshun is made it to Shango. How Het Haru is made it to Haru. They make themselves to these warrior energies because that represents the removal of fear, knowing who walks with you. Also, when we're talking about the mating of things, because in the movies, they like to borrow things, you have Padme, right? Padme was the wife of Anakin Skywalker, who later became Darth Vader. Well, in the Hindi, the word, or the Sanskrit, the word Padma means the one who dwells inside of the lotus. Padme, the one who dwells inside the lotus. And this is actually an aspect of Lakshmi. Lakshmi Padma is the name that we use. Okay. So, again, just like you have the caminos and paths, and just like things, are borrowed, is also known that Lakshmi actually rides her owl. She doesn't just have the owl in the picture, but the owl is her means for transport. So this also means that Oshun energy, or that congregative energy, a lot of the work that it does through wisdom and through stealth. Wisdom and stealth. Okay. So these are just the basic understandings of Lakshmi. But again, I wanted to give you all an idea of how exactly the symbols work with one another, why they are present, why these, Hindi deities have so many arms and legs, and what the heck is that all about? And just understand that really represents their supremacy. And again, that means it represents your supremacy. It's no different than the Orisha or anything else. Just like I tell you, you're not serving them. They are waiting to serve you. It's the same aspect here. They are waiting to serve you. All right. So that has been our show for this Foundational Friday. Again, it's been a beautiful pleasure to share this information with you all and break it down to you all. And I want to congratulate our 3 new students that we have in our new spiritual order who joined as a result of coming to the workshop on Sunday at Nicholas Bookstore. And they would just enjoy the information, and they came on through. So, I definitely want to send a djembe riff to Tawana and Nia and Esther, and we definitely have some more who I think it's about 5 more, something like that, 4 or 5 more who are also going to sign up. They're on their way in as well. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again next Friday. And be sure to be on the lookout this Sunday for the Anu Asafo show, where we will be getting into a very interesting topic, and that topic is homosexuality within the confines of traditional African spiritual systems. Okay, I'll be having a conversation with someone, and we'll kind of be exploring that topic a little bit and just trying to make some sense of it, or not necessarily make sense of it, bring it to light. Again, talking about doing things that have been in the shadows. That's another elephant in the room, that people just don't want to speak about in an intelligent manner. So we're going to speak about that this Sunday on Anu Asafo, and it's, of course, is also the student panel, which I love. So make sure you tune in to Anu Asafo at 1 p.m. on this same channel, Enlightenment and Transformation. Until then, everyone, be well.
We thank you for your listening support and urge you to become an active participating member of the Anu Order. Please be sure to follow our Ustream broadcast, which can be found at ustream.tv/channel/enlightenment-and-transformation. That is ustream.tv/enlightenment-and-transformation. Also, please be sure to sign up for the Anu newsletter, which can be found by going to anunation.org. That is ANUNATION.org. If you'd like to become a sponsor or an on-air guest on this or any of our other broadcasts, please be sure to contact us at questions@anunation.org. That is the word questions at anunation.org. Thank you for your continued support, and be well.